The stars were calm that night. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, a small space station floated above the blue planet Earth. People inside the station were busy with their usual work. Nothing strange had happened in weeks, but then everything changed. A sudden beep broke the silence. "Commander, we're getting a signal," said a young officer named Lion. His voice was unsure. "It's not from Earth. And it's not from any of our friends." Commander Reese stood up slowly. He walked to the screen. Strange symbols danced across it, but the computer quickly changed them into English. The message was short, cold, proud. "To the people of Earth, we are the Velari Dominion. You are not welcome in this galaxy. Go back to your small world. Do not step into our space again." Then the message repeated in many other languages. Finally, a voice followed, deep and smooth, but full of pride. It laughed. "One human ship in our space. That's cute." The voice stopped. The screen went black. The room stayed silent for a moment. Lion spoke again, quietly. "They know about our explorer ship, the HSS Valor. It's near their border." Commander Reese looked out the window. Earth was shining below. "They're not warning us," he said. "They're challenging us." The news spread fast. The United Earth Council held an emergency meeting. Leaders from many countries joined through video screens. Everyone looked worried. "The Velari Dominion is not like the friendly alien races we've met," said a science officer. "They control hundreds of star systems. They believe only the strong deserve to travel the stars." "They think we're weak," said a woman from the Asian Alliance. "And they want to prove it." "What do we do?" someone asked. "Do we recall the Valor?" There was a pause. Then came a voice, calm and clear. "Let them go." It was Admiral Stone. He had led Earth's space missions for 20 years. "Valor is the closest ship. Its crew is smart, and they volunteered for deep space travel. If we bring them back, we show fear. If we let them go forward, we show courage." "But it's only one ship," someone said. Stone smiled. "Yes, one ship. That's all we need." In deep space, the HSS Valor was moving slowly past a red star. It looked small and simple. It had no big weapons, just a few engines, some research tools, and a small crew of 7 people. But inside, they were ready. Captain Rain, a woman in her 40s, stood on the bridge of the ship. Her face was calm. She had already read the message. She had already made her choice. "We go forward," she told her crew. "We don't run." Her first officer, Juno, looked nervous. "They think we're a joke." Rain nodded. "Then we show them they're wrong." The crew checked their systems. They sent a message back to Earth. "Mission continues. No retreat." On a nearby Velari outpost, a group of aliens watched the human ship on their screen. The ship was small, slow. The aliens laughed. "They are sending explorers into our space," one of them said. "Not fighters." A younger Velari, named Talon, watched quietly. He didn't laugh. Something about the humans made him curious. "They're not running," he said. "They are foolish," said another. But Talon wasn't sure. Back on the Valor, Captain Rain sat in her chair. She looked at a small photo of Earth on the wall. She whispered to herself, "Let's show them what one ship can do." The ship moved deeper into Velari space. It was quiet, calm. But behind that calm, there was something more. A plan. A secret the crew had not shared with anyone. Earth had sent only one ship. But this ship was not just any ship. It was something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The HS Valor drifted through the vast emptiness of space. Its engines hummed softly, pushing it deeper into the heart of the Velari Dominion's territory. There was no turning back now. The crew knew that. But as the distance grew between them and Earth, a quiet sense of determination filled the ship. Captain Rain stood by the observation window, staring out into the dark. The stars seemed distant, cold like tiny points of light in an endless sea of black. Earth was far behind, a memory now. But in front of them, the future lay open, uncertain. What was waiting for them in this unknown territory? The Velari Dominion had warned them to turn back, but they hadn't. Juno, her first officer, joined her at the window. He was tall, with a broad frame and sharp eyes, but there was a slight unease in his posture. What if they don't just laugh this time? What if they try to stop us for good? Rain didn't turn away from the stars. We're not here to fight, Juno. We're here to show them that Earth isn't as weak as they think. He nodded but didn't seem entirely convinced. But we're one ship against their whole empire. I know, she said softly. But sometimes one small thing can make a big difference. The ship's communication system beeped, and a voice broke through the silence. Captain, we've just passed the border into Velari space. Lion, the communications officer, reported from his station. No signs of any ships yet. The scanners are clean. Keep them on alert, Rain replied. We don't know what they might throw at us next. The crew went back to their duties, moving with quiet focus. In the back of the ship, the engineers worked on the ship's core, ensuring everything ran smoothly. The scientists, who had always been more interested in exploration than conflict, studied maps and data, preparing for the unknown world they might soon encounter. But deep down, everyone knew that nothing would be the same after this. They weren't just exploring the stars anymore. They were standing up to an empire. As the hours passed, the tension aboard the Valor grew. The quiet of space made everything seem more intense, more personal. There was no loud noise, no shaking of the ship, just the soft hum of the engines and the knowledge that they were moving deeper into enemy territory. Then, just as the sun on the farthest edge of the system began to dip behind a distant planet, a new signal appeared on the scanners. Captain, we got something, Lion said, his voice sharp with excitement. It's a ship, a big one. The crew gathered around the main monitor as Lion zoomed in on the image. The ship was massive, far larger than anything the humans had ever seen. It looked like a floating fortress, built for war, not peace. This is it, Rain muttered under her breath. The Velari fleet. The alien ship loomed closer, its dark silhouette cutting through the stars. A message blinked across the screen. Human ship, you have entered our space. Turn back now. Your presence is not welcome. Rain's eyes narrowed. They don't understand yet. Talon, the young Velari officer who had been watching them from a distance, stared at the screen in his command center. He was puzzled. Why were the humans so calm? Why didn't they turn away? He had expected them to be scared, but they weren't. They don't seem afraid, he whispered to himself. His superior officer, an older Velari with sharp eyes and a deep voice, looked at him with disinterest. They are fools. They will regret it soon enough. But Talon couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about this human ship. It was so small, so vulnerable, yet it wasn't retreating. It wasn't running away like every other race had done when faced with the Velari might. Back aboard the Valor, Rain stepped forward. Let's send them a message of our own. Lion worked quickly at his station, typing in a command. The crew waited, watching the screen as their message was sent. We are here to explore, not to fight. We ask for peace. The screen went silent for a moment. Then the response came. Your words are weak, human. Do you think we will spare you simply because you speak of peace? You are foolish. Leave now, or you will regret this. Rain didn't flinch. Let's see how they respond to a peaceful presence, then. She turned to her crew. Prepare to go silent. Shut down all non-essential systems. We'll make it appear as though we're no threat. The crew worked in harmony, setting the ship to silent mode. The ship's lights dimmed, the hum of the engines softened, and the noise of the crew's movements became hushed. The Valor drifted on, quiet as a shadow in the vastness of space. Talon watched them from his command post. Something about the humans wasn't right. They weren't showing fear. They weren't showing the desperation of a species trying to survive. They were calm. He couldn't understand it. They were only one ship, no weapons, no fleet, yet they weren't afraid of what they faced. Talon took a deep breath and made a decision. He would keep watching, and he would try to understand. The days stretched on as the Valor sailed deeper into Valari space. The alien fleet shadowed them, but never attacked. The human crew remained quiet and focused, knowing that their time was coming. But they weren't alone in the dark. Talon was still watching, and in his heart, something was beginning to change. The silence in the vastness of space stretched on, broken only by the quiet hum of the Valor's engines. The crew had become used to the feeling of being watched. The Valari fleet hovered nearby, silent, but ever-present. They hadn't moved to attack, but neither had they offered any sign of peace. Captain Rain stood before the starboard window, staring into the endless black. The stars seemed so far away now, like tiny pinpricks of light in a sea of darkness. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she refused to show any signs of doubt. Her crew looked to her for strength, and she wouldn't fail them. "How long until we reach their capital?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. She knew the answer, but she wanted to hear it again, to reassure herself. Juno glanced at the ship's navigation screen. "We're about 2 days away. The Valari fleet is still shadowing us. No signs of aggression, yet." Rain nodded. She could feel the tension building among the crew. It wasn't just the Valari that were watching them. It was the entire galaxy. The Earth had sent only one ship, with no weapons, into the heart of an empire that had controlled vast swaths of the galaxy for centuries. And they were still alive, still moving forward. It was a sign of strength, even if it didn't feel that way. "Keep the systems quiet," Rain ordered. "We can't afford to make a move that'll make them think we're dangerous. We need to show them we're here for something other than battle." The crew worked in silence, adjusting controls and fine-tuning the ship's course. The quiet had become a routine. There was nothing to do but wait. The tension among them was palpable. But that tension wasn't just the fear of the unknown. It was the hope that the Valari might be willing to talk, to listen. Earth had sent one ship, but it wasn't weak. The crew had been trained for this. They were explorers, scientists, not soldiers. But they were about to do something no one had ever expected. In the command center of the Valari fleet, Talon stood at his post, his eyes fixed on the human ship. It was still moving forward, still maintaining its course through the cold, hostile space. No signs of fear, no retreat, just the same steady pace. Why haven't they changed their course? He muttered to himself. His fellow officers, the older and more experienced ones, shrugged. They didn't understand either. The humans had been warned. And yet, they continued. "They'll turn back soon enough," one of them said, dismissing the human ship with a wave of his hand. But Talon wasn't so sure. Something about the way the humans held themselves intrigued him. They didn't seem like invaders. They didn't have the arrogance or the aggression of others. Instead, they had a quiet determination. It was something he hadn't seen in any other race, and it unsettled him. "Maybe they're different," Talon said quietly, almost to himself. The officer beside him gave him a strange look. "Different? They're just another weak race. One ship, no weapons. They don't have the strength to challenge us." Talon didn't respond. He couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play here. He had to understand it. On the Valor, the crew continued their journey, moving closer to the heart of Valari space. Captain Rain knew that time was running out. They couldn't keep hiding forever. Sooner or later, the Valari would make their move. She hoped it would be peaceful, but she wasn't sure. There was too much uncertainty, too much danger in the unknown. But she believed in her crew, and she believed in the strength of humanity. Earth might be small compared to the vast empires out there, but it wasn't weak. And it had something that the Valari didn't expect. The will to fight for what was right, not with weapons, not with force, but with knowledge, with communication, with understanding. As they drew closer to the Velari capital, Rain couldn't help but think about the moment that had started it all. The message from the stars. The mocking laughter of the Velari. They had underestimated humanity. And that, she believed, was their greatest mistake. The message had been clear. Earth wasn't welcome. But Rain refused to believe that. She believed that humanity had a place among the stars, even if it was just one small ship at a time. And she would show the Velari that. Later that night, as the ship drifted closer to its destination, Lion approached the captain. His face was worried, but there was a determination in his eyes that matched hers. "Captain," he said, "the Velari fleet. They're closer. They've surrounded us on all sides now." Rain turned to face him. "Have they moved to attack?" "No," Lion replied. "They're just watching, waiting." Rain's eyes narrowed. "They're waiting for us to make a move, but we're not going to give them that. We hold steady." The crew gathered for their final preparations. The Velari capital was just ahead. And this was the moment. It was now or never. The Valor wasn't a warship, but the humans aboard it had something more important. The courage to face the unknown, to stand their ground without the need for violence. And as they drew closer to the heart of the Velari Dominion, Rain couldn't help but feel a sense of quiet hope. They might be only one ship, but they had proven something that day. They were ready for whatever came next. The darkness of space seemed to grow thicker as the HSS Valor approached the heart of the Velari Dominion. It was a strange feeling, both terrifying and exhilarating. The crew had been prepared for this moment for months, but no amount of preparation could truly prepare them for what was about to unfold. They were on the edge of a decision that could change the future of humanity forever. Captain Rain stood in front of the communications console, her eyes scanning the data streams that flickered across the screen. The Velari fleet was still trailing them, silent and unblinking. The human ship, though small in comparison, had kept its course, never wavering. Rain had ordered her crew to maintain a calm, neutral posture. They were not here to fight. They were here to show the Velari that humanity was not a threat, that it had a place in this vast galaxy. But as they moved closer to the Velari capital, Rain felt the weight of the moment. Every decision, every action, would be watched by the entire galaxy. There was no turning back. "Captain," said Juno, her first officer, his voice low with concern, "we've just received another message from the Velari. It's a warning. They're demanding that we turn around." Rain exhaled slowly, not surprised. She had expected as much, but something in her heart told her that the Velari weren't just issuing threats. They were testing them, testing humanity's resolve. "Send them a reply," Rain said. "Tell them we're not leaving, but that we're here for peace, not war." Juno nodded and moved to the communication station, quickly typing a response. The message was brief, but clear. "We are not here to fight. We seek understanding. Please allow us to enter peacefully." The seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then the response appeared on the screen, its words sharp and cold. "You are foolish to think that peace can exist between us. Your journey ends here. Turn back now or face the consequences." Rain read the message carefully. It was a warning, yes, but it wasn't an attack. Not yet. The Velari wanted something. They wanted control. They wanted to test humanity's limits. But what if they didn't understand? What if their warning wasn't just about power, but fear? "Keep moving forward," Rain said firmly. "We're not turning back. Set course for the capital. No weapons. Just us." There was no argument from the crew. They had come this far, and they trusted their captain. They had faith that humanity had something that could break through the barriers the Velari had built over centuries. They weren't giving up on this moment. The ship sailed onward, its destination growing ever nearer. The Velari fleet surrounded them like a pack of wolves circling their prey, but the Valor moved with quiet dignity, refusing to be intimidated. Meanwhile, aboard one of the ships in the Velari fleet, Talon stood at his station. He had been watching the humans from the beginning, trying to understand them, trying to figure out why they hadn't turned back, why they hadn't run like every other race would have done. The more he observed, the more he found himself intrigued. The humans weren't like the other races. They were different. They had a resilience that was almost familiar. It reminded him of his own people, in a way. Velari were proud, fierce, and always confident. But the humans, there was something more to them. They didn't rely on size or strength to prove themselves. They relied on something else. What is it about them? Talon whispered to himself, almost as if he could find the answer in the air. His commanding officer, the leader of the fleet, glanced at him. "What are you talking about?" "The humans," Talon said, still focused on the image of the Valor on his screen. "They haven't turned back. They're still moving forward. Don't you think that's strange?" The officer scoffed. "They're weak. They'll turn back soon enough. They always do. This is nothing but a small, futile gesture. One ship against our fleet. They don't stand a chance." But Talon wasn't so sure. There was something about the way the humans held their ground, something about the way they didn't respond with anger or fear. They were different, and that difference was unsettling. Meanwhile, the crew of the Valor continued their steady journey. As they neared the Velari capital, there was a subtle shift in the air aboard the ship. The crew was still focused, still determined, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation. They were about to step into the unknown, into the heart of a civilization that had ruled the stars for eons. It was a challenge, but it was also a chance to prove that humanity belonged among the stars, not as conquerors, but as equals. As they approached the capital, Rain gathered the crew in the main command center. She stood before them, her face calm but filled with resolve. This was it. This was the moment they had prepared for. "We are not here to take over, to destroy, or to conquer," Rain began, her voice steady. "We're here because humanity has always been curious. We're here because we believe that peace is possible, even in the darkest corners of space. We may be one ship, but we are not alone. We have the strength of every person on Earth behind us, and we won't back down." The crew looked at each other, nodding silently. They knew what this meant. They were about to face the Velari, not as enemies, but as a species that had the right to exist, to explore, to learn. It wasn't about strength or firepower. It was about the power of will and hope. They were ready. Talon, aboard his ship in the Velari fleet, felt a strange feeling in his chest as he watched the human ship approach the capital. He didn't know why, but he felt something stirring inside him, a curiosity, a desire to understand. The humans hadn't given up. They hadn't run. And that, he realized, made all the difference. The final stretch toward the Velari capital felt like a dream. Time slowed in a way that was almost unnatural. Every small movement, every adjustment in course, seemed amplified in the quiet of space. The crew of the Valor knew they were about to step into a place where no human had ever been, at least not in any meaningful way. The Velari capital was a city unlike any they had imagined. From the outside, it was an immense structure, massive, gleaming with strange, alien light. It was beautiful in its own way, a testament to the Empire's power, but there was something cold about it, something detached. As they neared the capital, Rain stood at the helm, her fingers resting lightly on the controls, though she wasn't actively navigating. She was staring out of the viewport, watching the capital grow larger. The Velari fleet was still with them, silent, as if waiting for something. Their presence was like a shadow hanging over the ship. They hadn't moved to engage, but their watchfulness felt suffocating, as though they were waiting for the humans to make a mistake. "We're in their airspace." Juno's voice broke the silence, his voice laced with a quiet urgency. The Velari haven't moved to attack yet, but they're still surrounding us. Rain nodded, not taking her eyes off the capital. They're not here to attack. They're here to observe. But we need to stay steady. Don't give them any reason to think we're a threat. The words felt reassuring, but inside, Rain's heart was heavy. She didn't know what would happen once they reached the capital, but the stakes couldn't be higher. Humanity was not just one ship. It was everything that the crew represented. Every individual, every belief, and every dream of a future beyond Earth. They had no weapons, no defense against the Velari fleet. If things went wrong, they could be wiped out in an instant. "Captain, the Velari are sending a new message," Lion said, his voice tense. He was stationed at the communications console. "They're offering us an audience. They want to meet with us face to face." Rain blinked. An audience? Not just a message. Lion confirmed it with a nod. "Yes, Captain. They want to speak with us in person, at their capital." The suddenness of it made Rain pause. The Velari had never given any indication of wanting to engage this way. Everything so far had been an unspoken game of cat and mouse. And now, they were inviting the crew of the Valor into the heart of their empire. Rain's mind raced. This could be the chance they needed, or it could be a trap. She couldn't afford to make a wrong move now. "We'll go," Rain decided, her voice resolute. "But no one goes alone. We move as a team." The crew gathered in the main hall, preparing for what could be the most important meeting in the history of Earth. The air was thick with anticipation, and despite the calm on the outside, everyone could feel the weight of the moment. The Velari fleet had surrounded them, silent and watchful. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone understood that humanity's place in the galaxy was being determined in that very instant. The ship gently slowed as it entered the docking bay of the Velari capital. The dock itself was enormous, large enough to hold hundreds of ships like the Valor, all lined up like pieces in a grand, chessboard-like structure. It was a spectacle of alien technology, metallic, almost translucent surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly glow. Everything was so vast, so alien. Juno moved to Rain's side as they prepared to leave the ship. "Do you think this is the beginning?" he asked softly. Rain looked over at him, her face calm but her eyes filled with the same uncertainty. "It could be. But we'll never know unless we take that first step." They moved as one toward the airlock, their footsteps echoing in the silent corridors of the Valor. Each member of the crew carried the same sense of purpose. They weren't just walking into the unknown for themselves. They were walking for Earth, for humanity's future. For the possibility that despite all the odds, they could find a way to stand alongside the great empires of the galaxy. The airlock opened, and the crew was met with an impressive sight. The Velari greeted them not with weapons or aggression, but with silence. The space they entered was vast, filled with holograms and projections that swirled in the air, depicting the history of the Velari people. It was beautiful, but intimidating, a constant reminder of the Empire's long and storied existence. At the far end of the chamber stood the Velari leader, tall and imposing, with sharp features and glowing blue eyes. The leader stood as though expecting them. There was no arrogance, no scorn in the Velari's posture. Instead, there was curiosity, a sharp, intense curiosity that felt like it cut through the air itself. "You are bold to come this far," the Velari leader's voice echoed through the chamber, a deep, resonant tone. It was both welcoming and chilling. Rain stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "We are not here to fight. We are here because we believe there is another way, one that doesn't involve destruction. Humanity has much to offer. We want to prove that." The Velari leader studied her for a moment, the silence heavy. "You are indeed different from others who have come before you," they said finally. "You have shown courage, but courage alone does not make you worthy of existence among the stars." Rain's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "We have no intentions of taking anything from you. We just want a chance to share what we know and learn from you in return. There is so much we can accomplish together." The leader tilted their head slightly, as if considering her words. The tension in the air was palpable. Rain could almost hear her own heart beating in her ears, but she refused to look away. She had spoken the truth. Humanity wasn't here to take from the Velari. It was here to give, to offer a future that could benefit both races. What you offer is intriguing, the leader said after a long pause. But you must understand, the Velari do not trust easily. There are others in our empire who may see this differently. You may not leave this place unscathed. Your journey, though noble, could be the last step humanity ever takes in this galaxy. Rain took a breath, her mind racing. Then let us prove that we are worthy. Give us the opportunity to show you. If we fail, then we will leave. But if we succeed, will you allow us to live among the stars? The Velari leader studied her once more, their eyes glowing faintly. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, they spoke. Very well. I will give you that chance. But know this, should you fail, you will not be allowed to return to Earth, and your people will be erased from history. Rain didn't flinch. We accept that. The room fell into a heavy silence after the Velari leader's words. Rain felt the weight of the promise, the responsibility pressing down on her shoulders like an invisible burden. The crew stood behind her, tense but resolute, each of them aware that this was not just about survival. It was about proving something greater, that humanity had a place among the stars. The Velari leader's gaze lingered on Rain for a long moment, as if weighing her very soul. It was the kind of silence that demanded patience, the kind that could break the spirit of lesser beings. But Rain remained steadfast, her posture straight, her eyes unyielding. She had to be the rock for her crew, even if her heart raced faster with every passing second. Finally, the leader spoke again, their voice soft but firm. You claim to offer peace. You claim to want to learn. But you must understand something, human. Our people are ancient. We have seen countless species come and go. Some have destroyed themselves. Others have fallen to the might of our fleets. And yet, here you stand, a single ship, unarmed, offering words of peace. What makes you think you are different? Rain took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment she had been preparing for. She had to show them that humanity was not defined by its size or strength, but by its spirit, its will to survive and thrive in the most difficult of circumstances. She stepped forward slightly, making sure her voice carried the sincerity of her words. We're different because we have something that none of your past enemies had. Hope. We have hope, and we have the determination to build something better. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, but we've always found a way to survive. We've made mistakes, yes, but we learn. We grow. We adapt. The Velari leader's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker in their eyes, something that told Rain that her words were striking at something deep inside the alien. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps something else. But Rain knew that, in this moment, she wasn't just speaking to the Velari leader. She was speaking to all of the Velari people, to every empire, every civilization that had ever felt threatened by something different. The leader nodded slowly, their gaze never leaving Rain. We will give you your trial. We will observe you, as we do all who claim to seek peace. But know this, there is no place in this galaxy for weakness. If you falter, if you fail to prove your worth, you will be lost to us forever. Rain nodded, her resolve unwavering. We will not fail. With that, the Velari leader turned and gestured toward a nearby doorway. Come, there is much to be done. The trial will begin. Rain and the crew followed the Velari leader down a long, illuminated corridor. The walls were made of smooth, metallic material that seemed to pulse with energy, almost alive. Holographic images flickered and danced across the surfaces, showing scenes of Velari history, great battles, conquests, and the rise of their empire. It was a story of power, of domination, and yet there was something in the way the images moved that made Rain pause. It was as if the Velari were trying to show something more, something beneath the surface of their mighty empire. As they walked, the Velari leader spoke again, their voice echoing in the silence. "We have watched your species for some time. We know your history, your struggles, your triumphs. But what we don't know is whether you can be more than what you've been. The trial will test your capacity for growth, for understanding. It will show us if you can be more than just another fleeting species in the galaxy." Rain's mind raced as they continued down the corridor. The trial. What did it entail? What kind of test could the Velari possibly have in mind for humanity? And how could they prove that they were worthy of a place in the galaxy when they had only just begun to scratch the surface of what the universe had to offer? They arrived at a large chamber, its walls glowing with soft, pulsing light. In the center of the room stood a strange mechanical structure, an array of interconnected panels, wires, and shifting holographic displays. It looked like some kind of advanced technology, perhaps a test of intellect or problem-solving. Rain couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the sheer complexity of the design. The Velari leader motioned for them to step forward. "This is the first part of your trial. You will need to solve this puzzle, a puzzle that has been solved by few, if any, who have come before you. It is not about power, nor about brute force. It is about your ability to understand, to adapt, and to work together. Fail, and you will not leave this place." Rain exchanged a quick glance with her crew. This was the moment they had been preparing for. This was their chance to prove that humanity wasn't defined by its past mistakes, but by its potential for greatness. Without hesitation, Rain stepped forward, taking a deep breath. She had led her crew through countless challenges, but this was different. This wasn't just a battle of strength or will. It was a battle of intellect, of unity. She could feel the eyes of the Velari leader on her, watching, waiting to see if humanity could rise to the occasion. The challenge was intricate, a web of interconnected devices and holograms, each requiring careful analysis and coordination. It wasn't immediately clear what the solution was, but Rain knew that it was about more than just solving the puzzle. It was about showing the Velari that humanity could think outside the box, could approach problems with creativity and determination. Her crew worked together in perfect synchronization, their minds working as one. Juno quickly began to assess the puzzle's structure, while Lion worked on decoding the holographic elements. Rain herself focused on the patterns that appeared and disappeared across the panels, trying to identify the logic that governed the system. It was a challenge, no doubt, but it was the kind of challenge that humanity excelled at, solving problems through collaboration, through sheer determination. As the minutes ticked by, they began to make progress. Piece by piece, the puzzle began to reveal its secrets. Rain's heart raced as they got closer and closer to the solution, each successful step feeling like a small victory. The room, once filled with silence, now hummed with the energy of their collective focus. And then, with a final click, the puzzle was solved. The panel shifted, revealing a new set of pathways, and the holographic images changed to display a map of the galaxy, highlighting areas that had never been explored by any species. It was an invitation, an opportunity to explore the unknown, to seek out new knowledge and experiences. Rain stepped back, her breath coming in quick bursts. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and triumph. The Velari leader nodded, their expression unreadable. "You have passed the first trial, but this is only the beginning." Rain glanced at her crew, who were all smiling, their eyes filled with hope. They had done it. They had proven that humanity could rise to meet the challenges of the galaxy. But now, they had to prove that they could do more. "Let's take the next step," Rain said, her voice steady. "We're ready."